This is my review of Happy Sugar Life. Okay, so this episode confirms something that I've just been saying all along, and if you haven't watched my previous reviews, then you guys will probably be in for a shock. So, in this episode, after Shoko and Satou's chat, Satou actually takes Shoko back to her apartment complex. And on the way there, they talk about the nature of their relationship and how the two actually do like hanging out with one another, and that they kind of are just happy to be friends. And are happy that they found friends in one another. But upon arriving at the apartment complex, they find that two police officers, a man and a woman, have investigated Satou's apartment at the teacher's request. So Daisuke is secretly watching from the sidelines and getting a sick sexual thrill from it. But he believes that Satou actually killed her aunt, and we actually get to see what his thought process is behind this. He believes that she found her one and only love after being taken in by her aunt. Her aunt rejected that kind of love, and Satou killed her. However, that's not what actually happened. So Satou is reluctant to comply with the police's orders to let them into the apartment, but eventually does, and everybody's thrown for a loop when Satou's aunt actually opens the door. And it actually freaks you out because you think that she's opening the lock so she can let herself in, and so she knows she's home, but then Satou's aunt actually answers the door, and suddenly things start to click a little bit. So we find out in this episode that Satou's aunt is crazy. That's the long and short of it. She's crazy and is more or less responsible for how Satou actually turned out. So yeah, her aunt is crazy, pointing at, and it becomes completely evident that she accepts pretty much anything as love. She lets everybody into her apartment. The police do some investigating and don't find anything incriminating except for a room full of trash, which she points out was causing the bad smell that the police came to investigate. But then she kind of lets out that maybe the male police officer is a little bit lonely and that he just needs somebody to love. And she actually begins to do what is basically considered sexual assault at this point, and climbs on top of him. And eventually the female officer steps in and separates the two before promptly leaving. And she also tries to do the same with Shoko, but Satou intervenes and prevents that from happening, and then the two leave. But it's incredibly apparent that Satou's aunt is responsible for the way Satou turned out. That Satou, upon seeing what kind of person her aunt was, and growing up with her aunt, started to develop mental problems, and that's incredibly apparent here. And Shoko is beginning to suspect that may be the reason why Satou is kind of the way she is. Shoko tries to get involved, but can't find the words, and Satou eventually leaves to go back to her apartment, but not before telling off her teacher not to follow her around again and try to get involved in her personal life before going back to her apartment. However, it's actually revealed that the apartment that her aunt was in is actually a completely different apartment from the one where she and Shio actually live, and that this entire episode was designed to fake us out and make us think that she actually lived with her aunt, when we know for a fact that has never been the case. So yeah, she no longer lives with her aunt, and in fact lives in a completely different apartment in the same apartment complex. So she's generally in the same place, but not in the same apartment. And yeah, this episode overall just establishes that Satou might have turned out the way she is because of her aunt, and that's kind of mostly what this episode is about. It shows where Satou kind of went wrong in her developmental period as a child, and that her aunt is entirely to blame for it. So, yeah, that's mainly what this episode does, and it does a really good job at that by introducing us to the character of Satou's aunt and how crazy she actually is. And I'm kind of repeating myself, but there's really not much to analyze in this episode. It's mainly just we're introduced to Satou's aunt and she's crazy. That's the entire episode. But yeah, that's my review of Happy Sugar Life. I thought it was interesting because it shows that it shows where Satou went wrong in her childhood and why she became the psychopath she is today, and also establishes that the apple didn't fall far from the tree. So, if you guys have watched this episode of Happy Sugar Life, let me know in the comment section down below, or over on my Discord server, link in the description. Anyway, thank you guys so much for watching. If you enjoyed, be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Also, be sure to follow me on Facebook and on Twitter in the description below. And also, check out my Patreon description below as well. It's only a couple bucks a month, and it really helps me out, so I would definitely appreciate it if you did that. But anyway, thank you guys so much for watching, and until next time, I will see you guys in the next video. Peace!